Yeah, I was reading the Song of the Three Holy Children. It said, and they walked in the midst of the fire, praising God and blessing the Lord. And this little heifer had roast beef. And this little heifer had none. He's laid up full and fat. This little heifer went wee, 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 all the way home. Got the red heifers and the song. I got some books. I just read Euphrates, the Persian sage, about 370 BC or so, and he was known for his wisdom, and he was going counseling anybody come in contact with. He was a listener, and a lady came and said she's having some problems in her family and all. He prayed with her and talked to her husband, and when she got back, and things were better. Not to be mistaken, but goody. Good. And it was it's the Black Book of Carnathon, the Book of Talis, and the Red Book of Hergus, and the Book of Aaron. Yeah. There was something else, but I don't remember which one it was. Oh, the Four Masters. The Four Masters and the Three Heifers. Bringing out the Book of Taliesin. I had this book out. And then this other poem that I didn't, not to be mistaken with. Jumacus. Right. There was another god. In a country situated between the Humber Cloud of North Britain, was for the most part originally occupied by the Zimri, who here, as well as in the west, displayed no mean valor in opposition to the Roman arms. This other what is this interesting as proof of your coming from this noble blood we have mentioned. Here's your pedigree. This was more from the Four Masters. It's interesting, although not in alphabetical order. The records that have been kept. And with a name like Sedna, Fairland, Imleach, Goyd, and Noms, Faber, Gas. I mean, it's worth the read. And what's that picture? In the annals. Cambria. And they're just interesting. And it takes you interesting really enough. They talk about King Priam, who was the last king of Troy, and how they were in countrymen with the Dorians, Macedonians, and even Lacedaemonians, at the time of the Spartans and Maccabees. And before the Maccabees, there was and it's interesting how words can get mixed. I'll show you something like the Maccabean versus earlier Judah after King Hezekiah. Had a King Manasseh son, and he was captured and taken into Babylon before he got a little bit more better sense. But then later on, around 100s BC, was another person called Judah Maccabee, led revolts. But where did they go? And earlier they had raided Mount Gershom, certain ones. And then later on they're fighting in between. I need a map. And it says, and Judas fought against the children of Esau in Idumea at Arabatine, because they besieged Israel. And he gave them a great overthrow and abated their courage and took their spoils. Later on you read that the way that He had meat. Roast beef. You'd think she could be protected by 2 bulls, or a judicial center wouldn't have to worry about it so much. And it was said for them to be able to help them earlier. And you go back in time, and there was a Manasseh's king would be about 650 BC. King taken into Babylon, and then later on the Maccabee era joining up. And the other king though would have been in the south, but they got mixed in together, and then those on the high court, they got Sadducees and Pharisees. They're with these people by the time the Maccabean era, Judah Maccabee rather. And they joined it up. It says it's found in writing that the Lacedaemonians and Jews are brethren, and that they are of the stock of Abraham. And therefore, since this has come to our knowledge, ye shall do well to write, and to us of your prosperity. And they talked amongst one another, and even got together and said we would communicate it. With we write back again to you that your cattle and goods are ours, and ours are yours. We do command, therefore, our ambassadors to make report unto you on the wise. Now when Jonathan heard of Demetrius, princes were coming to fight against him with a greater host than before, he removed from Jerusalem and met them in the land of Amathus, for he gave him no respite to enter. So these, what do you call them? That is 12. It is found in writing that the Lacedaemonians and Jews are brethren, and that they are of the stock of Abraham. And he wrote back. But the Maccabean, see, you say Judah, or you say Maccabean, or you say Maccabee. You're talking about a person. Words get mixed. And at this time, they were of Dorian heritage at the time of the Spartans, from 600s all the way down to 100s. And the thing is, this King Demetrius was sending troops in with him. You go back to the days of King Hezekiah, and there was Demetrius's. And then all the while, in another land, at another time, Manasseh was another Manasseh, not just the Manasseh's king. So the use of words, and it goes back in time, just like when you're talking about a person, Claudius. Or we say, all right, which Claudius? Claudius one, and from where? And another word, Caesar. Caesar's another word from where? And then it mixes over into other words, like to deliver. Is a deliver, is a rescue. And what exactly does deliver mean, or rescue? What is stand, or withstand? And what is that definition within the sentence? They play games, and it's not really games, it's just, you got to think faster. You got to think more. You got to say, well, King Louis, that's another one. There's so many Louis. Edward, King Edward, so many Edwards. And but this is just an old book. And what is entities? Entities is an entity. But there are not as many bell towers anymore. They seem to be coming down. But I've read over here, it's the Holden Gate. And by the time you get over here to Esther, it's kind of neat. That's how certain books communicate. Is now in Shushan, the palace, there was a certain Jew whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Is this mother or father? You always got to ask yourself that. Because by this time, in Esther, there's a conflation going on. But the one thing you do know, it ends with might, in this case. Benjamite. Of course, he had an M in his name. That might be a hard one. But that was, hold on. And what's crazy is at the time, even into the Acts era, it says, wherefore if Demetrius and the craftsmen which are with him have a matter against any man, the law is open, and there are deputies. Let them implead one another. You see, and there's even a Demetrius in this era, in Acts. So this is a coincidence. You can follow a line. Because by this time, this is in the Acts. And for a certain man named Demetrius, a silversmith, which made silver shrines for Diana, brought no small gain unto the craftsmen. And this would be just a King James version, but if you've got an ESV around the same time, it might say something like Artemis. It says, when they heard these sayings, they were full of wrath and cried out, saying, Great is Artemis of Ephesians. And that's just what it said. And over to a time over. If I had an ESV, I'd probably say Artemis. It says, and after 3 months we departed in a ship of Alexandria, which had wintered in the isle, whose sign was Castor and Pollux. And at this time, Castor and Pollux was known, had a temple there, and it was the twins. It was the Gemini. It was the Artemis, who has a sister, Artemis. These people watching the skies. But it starts out, and when they were escaped, they knew that the island was called Malta. And when comparing these areas to the Dorians spoken about, the Lacedaemonians, in the time before and even into Acts, and how they play with words. I think one of the craziest things in just Psalms, but it says here, Michelle of Ethan, the Ezrahite. So in Benjamite, of course he had a M on it. If the word Ezramite, but this says Ezraite. And cat. I like it. Oh, I am reading. Let's see. So this little heifer had roast beef. This little heifer had none. This little heifer went wee all the way home. So Esther's, that's about 580 BC. And the king Manasseh is taken into Babylon a little later, 650 BC. 650 BC. earlier. And Samuel, it says, now David was the son of that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse. Bethlehem, Judah, Benjamin, Judah. Bethlehem, Judah. Now David was the son of the Ephrathite. Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons, and the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. I can tell you how words get. Claudius Caesar, Louis Edward, Ephra, it was just like a council, the days of Sparta, of rulers, was elected every year or so. Ephraimite, Ephrathite, Ezraite. And even on up until today with a word like uni. Una. Una is what? One. Una. One. And that's even going on today. Una, one. And over in Kings, it says, in Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephrathite of Zerah, Solomon's servant, whose mother's name was Zerah, a widow woman, even he lifted up his hand against the king. Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, an Ephrathite of Zerah. Son of, at this time, they already, in relation to Ezra and Nehemiah, using mothers or fathers, depending on who's writing this. But they call him an Ephrathite. And what's interesting, you look at see here, a thite. So with regards to whether something is a town or a person, Ruth says, as long as the Psalms, an ite can indeed be the person, who they are. As in Ruth, Esther, the beginning of Ruth, which is similar to the little book of Esther. It's like one talks to the other. It says, now it came to pass in the days when the judges ruled, there was a famine in the land, and a certain man of Bethlehem, Judah, went to sojourn in the country of Moab. He and his wife and 2 sons. See, here's Bethlehem, Judah. That's a town. It says, in the name of the man was Elimelech, and the name of his wife Naomi, and the name of his 2 sons Mahon, Chilon, Ephrathites of Bethlehem. And they came into the country of Moab and continued there. They were Ephrathites. They were people. Naomi had a kinsman of her husband, mighty men of wealth, of the family of Elizabeth, of Elimelech, and his name was Boaz. So, this old book, this little heifer had roast beef, and this little heifer sitting fat, had none. This heifer went around and went all the way home. What happened to bell towers? Chronicles and Chronicles and the Chronicles of Cambrai.